There's one thing I want you to do for me.
What?
Come here.
What?
Win. Win.
What are we waiting for? Take this!
What's up, EoP sports fans? It's Wednesday night. It's 8:45. A little rain delay here at EoP. I'm Big Al.
I'm Freddie Burns.
Joe Sheeran is off tonight, but that is okay. We got plenty to fill in with him, and he will be back next week. But tonight we have special guests who will be joining us in about 15 minutes. Keith Pompey of the Philadelphia Inquirer to talk Sixers and the future of the Sixers and what could happen going into next year, because I mean, the man who would know the best would be the insider himself, Keith Pompey. He has been with the team for a while and knows just inside and out. But first, I would like to remind you that this show is brought to you by our great sponsors over at PhillySportsTrips.com, DolansBar.com, CherryInjuryLaw.com, and Sherry'sTickets.com. Let's talk a little bit, even though we were in a rain delay, let's talk a little Fighting Phils real quick. Up until yesterday, they were on a 6-game winning streak, meeting up against their National League rivals and the best team in the NL, the Atlanta Braves. When the Phillies, everybody knows we're just doing really bad. The April and May were left a lot to be desired, a lot like last year. And then June comes around, and whatever this turn of the calendar is for this team, it's night and day. Beat some bad teams and then beat probably the second best team in the National League in Arizona, where the Phillies struggle, and then went off to beat the Oakland A's. Now it's that measuring stick, Fred. And is this a measuring stick for you this early on in the season for the Fighting Phils?
No, it's not. It would feel good and make us feel good. We don't want to get trounced by the division, but I think the Braves are a better team right now. But as we saw last year, they're doing what they're supposed to do, and that's beat the bad teams. And in years past, Girardi and Kapler, that was always the issue. We would never beat the bad teams. And I think all we have to do is beat the bad teams, and then that'll put us in a position to make the playoffs. And then once you get in the playoffs, as you saw last year, all bets are off. I don't think there's a juggernaut like the Houston Astros in the National League right now that I'm totally scared of. You look at the NL Central, that's a mess there. The Dodgers are struggling now. Who's leading there? The Giants over there. And then the Braves are a good team, but like you put them in Citizens Bank Park in a playoff game, and they might fold like they did last year.
Some complaint. All right, so last night they both came in here on a 6-game winning streak. The Braves ultimately won 4-2 in the final. There were some things left to be desired in last night's game. Bad base running by JT Realmuto, who's been just playing really well lately. And some, another great pitching outing by Ranger Suarez, and another one that's kind of wasted in this way. And 3 guys who were not available in the bullpen, big guys, because they want to give them 2 days in a row off. Logic would lead you to think is, okay, well, wouldn't you do that against the Athletics when you already won the series, and save them for an important series like the Braves? And a lot of people are thinking that the Phillies, and even the manager himself has said things as such, that they're worrying about the long run. Maybe the Braves are worrying more about the now, and the Phillies are more worried about the long run. What are your thoughts on that, Fred? And is there do you think that's a good idea, a bad idea?
Well, first, I guess I'll talk about the stupid base running by Realmuto. That he was safe probably there, but that was just totally unnecessary and uncalled for. Like, you're starting a 2-out run. I get to be aggressive, get the extra base, but we got 2 innings here. You got another batter coming up to the plate. That batter is going to need to get a hit regardless to score a run. So you can hustle and go from first to third on a single if you want, possibly get that run in. It annoyed me that base running error. And as far as the pitching goes, Ranger, he gave up one run. I feel like maybe you could have let him stay in a little longer, no?
You could. Again, this goes to analytics where they believe, it's the seventh inning. You start to lose a couple miles per hour in your velocity. And the team, you worry about going up against a team that is one of the few teams that are in the current month of June out slugging the Phillies. I think just recently, I posted something right before this series started on Twitter, and I said, if you look at the comparison, we were 13-4, they're 13-3. Their batting average in the month of June as a team is 3.14 when we're 0.314 and we're 0.270. They've out home runned us, they've outrun us, and they have out hit us. The power is an issue right now for the Phillies, even though they've won some games since the Diamondback series. They have not had the same power. They're not hitting as many home runs. Kyle Schwarber is, but a key leader right now has not been having the power and has been struggling, and that's Bryce Harper. Coming off Tommy John surgery, came back faster than anybody else. We've heard that story. Guys who said that, come back from Tommy John don't always have the arm strength and the velocity to throw, but that really wasn't a reason why his bat hasn't been swinging, because he was playing through it all last year. Do you think it's a slump, or B, a little bit to do with the healing process?
Both, I guess. He is slumped. He's slumped in the past. We've seen him slump before. He gets out of the slump, he goes on fire, and the rest is history. You're not going to have a consistent, 162 games of 300 batting average and home runs every inning or every game. So, or every few games, however you want to word it. Now, is the concern he hasn't hit a home run in a month? Yes. Is the power probably lacking due to the injury and getting back? Yes. But I rather him in that spot than anyone else. Like, he takes pitches away and helps other batters, because he may be struggling now, but you still have to be smart when you're battling Bryce Harper as a pitcher, because he has the ability to hit the ball all over the field. And, he may not be hitting power home runs, but he'll find the hole in the defense. He's just a smart baseball player. So I don't see he's struggling. I get it, but I feel like the other batters are carrying just fine for the most part. Last night we left runners in scoring position. It's been an Achilles heel all year long. They're going to have to find a way to get through that. But no, what else would people say? Like, put him back. People were saying put him back down. I think Matty B last night to call another EoP guy on Tuesday nights. Check him out. But he's saying, like, put him back in the minors. Like, what's that going to do? That's not going to do anything.
Well, I don't know if they said now put him back in the minors, but maybe they should have done that a little bit more when he was coming back from injury, instead of thrusting him back into the MLB lineup, which,
he was hitting in the beginning.
Yeah, he came out slugging. Yeah. After the first game, we're like, wow, doesn't seem like he's skipping a beat. But right before, going into June, the question was, and we still have this question, is, the pitching, going the fifth starter. I know Rob Thompson said, Christopher Sanchez has kind of worked his way into the lineup, maybe after his last good outing against the Athletics. Like I said, Ranger Suarez has a 1.04 ERA in the month of June, and it looks like he's back to the Ranger that we know. And agreed, could have gone deeper. Again, this is where the analytics and the gut thing starts to come to play in. But everybody said we need to go out and maybe get another pitcher sooner than later. Do you think it's now more of a power bat, or do you still go pitching fifth starter, or both?
I don't know. I think this batting lineup is going to come around. They've had games just right here on this little 6-game stretch where they've put runs on the board. Now they've won games 3-2 back-to-back against Oakland as well, and they only scored 2 runs last night. So it's been ups and downs, but we've had 8-run games, we've had 11-run games. I'm not really too worried about it, to be honest with you. The only concern I get annoyed with is Kyle Schwarber in the leadoff spot. I know he gets hot sometimes and it feels fun and awesome, but he's just not a leadoff hitter. We need to get runners on base, and we need him to be hitting home runs when the runners are on base, though he seems to not do that. He only does it when they're not only, but oftentimes when they're not on base. Maybe the pressure's off for him in those spots. I don't know. Rob Thompson even said, this lineup hasn't given all it has to give at this point in time, which I 100% agree with. As far as the fifth starter, it's now June 21st. Painter just threw a bullpen yesterday. They've all along, Dombrowski is steadfast that they're not really concerned about the fifth starter, that they're going to wait for Painter early August. And if you look around the league, most teams have this fifth starter problem. So it's not just the Phillies problem. And there's depth, and it's not like teams are getting rid of their starters. You're going to have to give up a ton to get even a 3 or a 4 probably to fill the 5. So to me, it's like, if you're going to be able to get a player, it's going to be like, kind of like I said last week, it's going to be a 1 or a 2 you're going to have to go after and just move everyone down the hole. And if you can find a young guy or a younger guy, that would be even more helpful, because you got Wheeler coming up with a contract. You got Nola's contract as well, and he's not pitching well. So there's definitely going to be tension between what that deal is going to be and if someone else wants to pay him. So at this point, it's like, hey, we're what, 16-4, 9, what are we, 9-4, 9-3 or something in the month of June. There's still
they're you mean for win-loss or 13-4?
13-4.
13-4, yeah.
No, I think it's 13-5 after last night. So 13-5. And then we got 9 days left. We got the month of July. I mean, unless they start, we just got to stay afloat here. We can't lose 5 in a row. You know what I mean? So
sure.
500, win 2 or 3. 500, win 2 or 3. Like that's how it's got to be. And that's how I think
they've won 5. They've won 5 series in a row. There's still plenty of chance for them to win this series here. They have 2 young pitchers coming up to face the Phillies. If Aaron Nola can have a one of those good Aaron Nola games and not have a fall apart inning, that could be huge for us. If he can work past his ERA, we have all seen his ERA with base runners on base versus nobody on base, which is like 100+ point differential. If he can work through that, I mean, it's a very possible series still to win. And you may look back at this game, last night's game, and go, "Oh, we could have, possibly swept the Braves." Now, coulda, shoulda, woulda is a different story. But I mean, there's a lot of games to go on. 2 more games in this series. The Mets series this weekend. And I'll tell you right now, if you want to hit up any one of those games, the place I go to is sherrystickets.com. Family owned and operated since 1946. Great for sports tickets, concert tickets. It is totally concert season right now. Theater tickets, no hidden fees. You're not going to get bamboozled at checkout. You're not going to get $100, $150 per ticket fee at the end and raise those prices up. No, you're going to get great prices, great deals. You're gonna do better than the rest, and you're gonna save an additional 10% off using that great EoP promo code EoP10. The promo code will save you an additional 10% off at sherrystickets.com.
Love me some Sherry's tickets.
Oh, absolutely, and I use them. I use them to go. I'm going this Friday. I use them all the time. It's like I don't even look at the other websites. It's pointless. I know I'm going to do better there, and I love using them. So you guys should use them too. And we're about a minute or so away. We'll be getting Keith Pompey, 76ers Insider, to talk 76ers and what could we expect with the Sixers. Talking a little Phillies. They are in the rain delay still. I mean, it is 9:00. This was supposed to be a 6:40 start. I mean, I don't know about you, Fred. At what point does this game get called? I mean, you're already 2 hours and 20 minutes past the start time. How much further do you go?
What's the time for tomorrow's game scheduled for?
I think it's a later game as well. I'll tell you right now because I have that up over here.
105. 105 tomorrow.
So yeah.
So I would say they'll probably see if they can do it within the next hour, and then you would either do a doubleheader tomorrow or push that game maybe a little bit if it's going late into the night possibly. But likely a doubleheader, I would say, unless I don't know what the Braves schedule is. The Phillies are at home, obviously, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I don't know if the Braves have somewhere to travel, but it's likely that will be the best scenario. So they're obviously they would have canceled if by now. And the beauty of the pitch clock is that starting a game at 9:00, it will still be done by 11. So it's almost like, or 9:30. It'll be done by 11:30, 12. So it's almost just like an extra inning game back when there was no pitch clock. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's not insane for them to play this late.
No, I mean, if you go 2.5 hours, it's still 11:30 game, and we've watched plenty of Phillies games to 11:30 at night that weren't West Coast games. So it's yeah, it's still playable. It's actually still playable. It is just what are they willing to do, and how much is this crowd dispersed by then? I guess plays a little bit of a factor into it. I mean, I could tell you right now, if I had my kids down there, even though it is summertime, it'd probably be hard to sit for 2 hours. I mean, I did do that one time. It was a Mets series, Sunday game, final game of the season. It was back to, and they had like a 2.5 hour delay in between, about fifth inning, I think it was. And I sat there with my kids, and God bless them, they didn't drive me nuts to the point that I wanted to just get in the car and go home. So, it'd be interesting to see what they do if they call this game sooner versus later.
I actually had tickets to tonight's game, and I'm the free tickets, Hall of Fame Club, and I was thinking about going, and I'm actually even happier that I didn't go. It would have been Freddie's, my son. It's his birthday today. Happy birthday to him. It would have been his first game too, and it would have been miserable. And we would be leaving right now.
Especially,
we would have got down there,
especially his age.
Yeah, it would have been. We literally wouldn't have watched baseball. it would have stunk. So glad I chose EoP over the Phillies for this Wednesday. We got ton of.
Talking to Keith right now. He's getting ready to pop on. So, but like I said, like I mean, with the I keep hearing this the scenario like, oh, we miss Rhys Hoskins. Now here's a guy that every time he's here, he's slumping, he's cold, he gets real cold, and then all suddenly, he's now that we don't have him, we miss him. Like, I don't believe that. I'm sorry. I just don't. I'm not saying that he wouldn't make a difference and he isn't a locker room a leader in any which way, but I can't believe that he makes a difference. Like
Cody Clemens has done fine. He's done fine at first base. The fielding has been tremendously better. This Rhys Hoskins myth, as if he was like a Gold Glove first baseman hitting home runs every single night, is bullcrap. Like he gets hot for 1 month where he's unbelievable, and then he's ice cold striking out after that. Like that's what Rhys Hoskins is. That's the reality of it. So it's all just revisionist history. That's not true, and it's annoying, really, because I will say though, back to your trading for a bat, Paul Goldschmidt trading for him, which has been rumored. I don't know what we'd have to give up, but that would be awesome. Like that would be an upgrade of a first baseman.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think outside of the power for the 1 month and maybe some pitching approaches, we have enough bats in this lineup that I don't think it's a difference. I really don't. And I actually would prefer a Cody Clemens style batter than all power hitters anyhow, because we'd have even more strikeouts in the lineup with him at the helm. I think it's a total farce, and people are just, in, like I said, kind of like how people remember Jimmy Butler, Yeah. And speaking of basketball.
Yeah, right. Speaking of basketball, let's bring the man in. If you don't know who this man is, you need to get underneath the rock that you've been living on. That's Keith Pompey, Sixers insider, Philadelphia Inquirer, Locked On Sixers. If you follow the Sixers even a little bit, you know who Keith is. Keith, thank you for joining us again.
The man.
All right, my $3,000 check is in the mail, bro. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Anytime. Like I said, it's always a pleasure to have you on. I have a lot of Sixers questions, like many other, I'm sure. I almost feel panicky at this point. I guess a lot of Sixers fans have, and because there's always been a move. or a chip or something that we could do. We had something of some sort of value that we'd be willing to give up, even at Ben Simmons, even though the value of whatever it is with him. But like, it just feels like they're in a rock and a hard place. And I'm going to start off with real quick with James Harden. We hear the Rockets thing. We hear, all these different scenarios. What are your feelings and percentages that James Harden's a Sixer next year?
Wow, that's tough with the percentages. I would say right now, I would probably say 80% that he's going to be a Sixer next year. And the reason being is I think like a month ago, I would have said 99% that he was going to be a Houston Rocket. And it switched, right? But the reason why it switched is when you look at it, I feel like, everybody's saying James is going to Houston, James is going to Houston. And then all of a sudden, I remember when Jalen Green was on that Paul George podcast, and it was like, Paul George was like, hey, man, you sure you want to play with him? He's going to have the ball. And then that's like, and I know Jalen Green was being cool about it, but to me, it's kind of sort of like, it's getting out there that some of the players probably don't want to play with him, right? Another thing is, I think that the Sixers were kind of sort of like, hey, yeah, James could get 4 years, $217 million, but we're not trying to break the bank. We're not going to do it. We're not going to, mess up our short and long-term future, right? That's what they said, right? So when that happened, then all of a sudden you hear stuff coming out of Houston that the Rockets are saying, hey, we don't want to give up a lot of years either. So with all that, it's like, it seems like things are changing a little bit. And with that being said, I feel like he's going to remain a 76er. I do. Yeah. I could be wrong, but I feel like he's going to be a 76er.
And real quick, guys, before we move on, just a little insider information. It looks like they're going to be calling this game, and it might be pushed to September into that series for the Phillies and Braves. So stick with us. Let's talk with Keith. Talk Sixers. Go ahead, Fred.
Piggybacking off your Harden question, Al, and I agree with everything you said, Keith. What I could never understand, even the rumors in Christmas, like who's going to give him a max deal of significant money. So my question is, he's got the player option for $35 million next year. What do you think is on the table for James Harden to come back to the Sixers or go elsewhere? Because I feel like 35 is even high.
Yeah, it's kind of high, but I think that when you look at it and you look at some of the things that he gave up, talking about, he gave up $15 million, the opt-out, right? He did actually get an extra year too, right? So that's kind of cool. But I feel like maybe, something in the 40 range, like maybe 40, 48. Like, and I know that sounds crazy, but what I'm thinking about is the money that he gave up. And like, so if you give him, if you give him 2 years, 48 per, it's kind of like, look, we're thanking you for what you did. Because, if he didn't take that money, they wouldn't have, they wouldn't be able to sign PJ Tucker. They wouldn't get Daniel House, things like that. So I feel like you give him the money to basically thank him for what he did, in my opinion. Like 2 years, 48 plus per.
Gotcha. And then my last Harden question anyway. I think some Sixers fans fail to realize he did disappear in 7 and the end of 6, but they might have gotten swept if it wasn't for those 2 games where he dropped 40 plus. What do you know about Harden as like a locker room guy? Like I feel like half the season he played one way, kind of like what Doc said, but do the players actually like him? Do they like that he went to Vegas? Do they care? Or it seemed like when Joel won the MVP, it was all, they were loving on each other. Everyone was happy. And then it seems like little inklings come out sometimes about not wanting to play with James.
Here's the thing about James. Like, I will tell you this. Like, all right, I'm going to give you an example. And then I never wrote about this or anything like that. So I'm just sharing it here. I remember we were in the locker room at one game, after a game, and James and Maxey were talking. It was on the road. And where was it? I believe it was, it was on the, I forget exactly where it was, but in Indiana. We were in Indiana. And that's the game that Maxey had a huge game, right? And afterwards, Maxie was like, I love playing with you, James. And like James was joking with him, and like Maxie was like, yeah, man, like you make it so much easier for me, right? And you get me the ball in the right spots. And then I heard stories like last summer, young guys. One guy in particular, well, one guy he couldn't make it because he had something where James was flying his teammates into Houston, paying for it so they could work out with him. And then not only that, like if he knew that they had some type of not hobby, but if they if they like speaking to kids or like urban inner city kids or like doing book reading and stuff like that. Like I heard James was setting them up with people in Houston to do that while they were there. So they love him. The thing about James Harden is, yes, he goes to Vegas, he does all this other stuff, but he's been doing that his whole career. So it's kind of sort of like, and the person who he did it the most with those 9 years in Houston, Daryl Morey, is here in Philly. So it ain't changing. Like, you know what I mean? It's just not going to change. And another thing I will say this, at practice, now maybe some people might say he needs to rest, but I've never seen anyone go as hard after practice, like doing drills and stuff like that, in my 10 years of covering the Sixers than James Harden. Seriously, never seen anyone. Shoot arounds, practices, he's always the last person out of the gym. So with that being said, it's like I think it's one of those things where you got a guy, on the court, he's going to be a leader, he's going to do what he has to do. But you also know that my man's going to party. He's going to get it in. He's going to have a good time. But it's not one of those things where he's late for practice or he doesn't want to practice. It's like he gets up. I guess he works hard and he plays hard. If that's how you want to describe it.
Sure. I mean, I always said I don't care what he does, and he's having fun as long as he shows up for the game, and it's not the reason his game's it became hindered in any which way. But let's look at the other side of the coin with Joel Embiid. Here's a guy that got a lot of criticism after games 6 and 7 as well. People have already talked about, hey, let's just move on, let's blow it up, let's send him out, let's move on from him. I know that's not going to happen, and why would you want that to happen? But my question to you is, if the Sixers can't, and it seems like they're kind of stuck in that rock and the hard place, maybe make any big moves to move forward, could Joel Embiid, we always said his window with his health could be an issue, but his window of wanting to be here in Philly and maybe wanting to move on and win a championship somewhere else, is that window begin to shrink even smaller and quicker than we thought?
It could. I mean, I think the 76ers have to be, even if he doesn't say it, if I'm Daryl Morey and you have to be a little bit on notice, right? You have to. Because when you look at Joel Embiid right now, Joel Embiid is he's in the same class they say as Nikola Jokic and Giannis Antetokounmpo, right? Those are the three stars right now, like leading stars of the league. They are. It's their time. Like LeBron is getting older. KD is getting older, and it's their time. All three of them have won MVP, but the other two won championships. So when we think about legacy, in order for Joel Embiid to be on the same level as them when it's all said and done, is all about getting that ring. And then it's going to come to a point where he's going to really want that ring. And he's looking like, I'm playing my hardest, but all we keep doing is getting second round exits. So if I'm the 76ers, the worst thing is going to happen is he's asking for a trade. And nowadays, let's think about it. Back in the day, it was taboo for a star player to say, I want out, right? Mm-hmm. It was like, you don't do that. Nowadays, they do it so often to where it's one of those things where you can just be like, people aren't feeling sorry. I mean, they're not going to feel bad for you. They're going to feel sorry for you saying, y'all need to get Joel a ring. Mm-hmm. That's just how it is.
You got 675 Craig over here calling Keith Pompey, the legend himself. Yeah, it's good to have Keith back on talking 76ers. Again, if you don't know where Keith's at, it's Locked On 76ers as daily podcast, as well as Philadelphia Inquirer, and of course at Pompey on Sixers on Twitter. Go ahead, Fred.
Let's switch. I have so much Embiid stuff, but I gotta go forward. Let's go forward to Nick Nurse, a totally new style, and I guess it's kind of an Embiid question as well. He typically has not had a center of Joel Embiid's ilk. He had Marc Gasol a little bit towards the end, but not Embiid's game at all. How do you see Joel Embiid fitting in that? And then secondly, what players do you think are going to benefit from Nick Nurse's system?
I mean, let me answer the second question first. I mean, I feel like, to believe it or not, I feel like two players will. I feel like Tyrese Maxey, and I feel like Tobias Harris if he remains, right? Like, I really do. And the reason being is when you look at the Toronto Raptors and you look at their guys, we talked about long, athletic fours who can guard different positions or play different positions. You look at Tobias Harris, a long, athletic power forward. I mean, that's what he is. He is a power forward. So I feel like, Nick Nurse can unlock certain things in Tobias that he did on Pascal Siakam. When right now we're sitting right here, if you ask me who's a better player, I'm gonna say Pascal. I'm gonna just say it, right? But when we go back to when they played in a couple, 4 years ago, when Tobias first came here in the playoff series, Tobias was by far the better player at that point. But Nick Nurse developed Pascal and got him in right situations to where he can become a versatile player. And I also think that Tyrese Maxey can develop under him. He can take another step, another leap. Right now we look at him and we just say, get him the ball up court, do certain things. But I think that what Nick Nurse can do is he can take advantage of his strengths and just make him a better, more well-rounded player. In regards to Joel Embiid, it's intriguing to me because when we think of one coach who's had the most success against one player, against Joel Embiid, it was Nick Nurse, right? I mean, there was games, and I know he had Marc Gasol, but then Valanciunas used to do things to Embiid too, right? So it was always those things. Now in the
Even
playoffs,
Siakam was frustrated.
Siakam. And it's a way that Nick he figured out a way to guard Embiid. And then, Doc took him out this year and had him, at the foul line doing stuff like that. But to me, Nick Nurse is a great coach. And if a guy knows he was Embiid's kryptonite, so to speak, right? So if you're a kryptonite, you know what his weaknesses are. So you also have to know what his strengths are as well. So I feel like Nick Nurse is going to put Embiid in a lot of great situations moving forward.
And since we'll stay on the Nick Nurse conversation, one thing Doc Rivers really didn't do is work with the young guys very often. And do you think after, seeing, like you said, helping Maxey take that next step forward, Jaden Springer, we all saw the video of the 100 threes out of 121. Do you think with Nick Nurse at the helm, they'll be bringing up that youth movement a little bit more?
I think so, but I also think it has a lot to do with their roster as well, right? We look at it, they have a lot of free agents. Some guys will go elsewhere where they think where they can make more money. A couple of them. And then also when we look at it, they don't have a lot of money to go out and get other players, right? And you look at Jaden Springer's progression. He has progressed a lot. We saw him what he did the second to last game of the season. He was a G League Finals MVP. He led the league, the G League in steals. So I feel like he's a guy. I'm not saying he's going to be the sixth or seventh man, but I could see him at least being in the back of the rotation, getting minutes, right? But I also think that's going to be a little bit out of necessity, but it's also going to give him an opportunity to grow, right? The one thing that I will say about Nick Nurse is he got a lot of flack this year because people felt like he didn't develop the young guys in Toronto this past season. But I think a lot of it had to do with you look at that roster, the team was struggling. Nick Nurse was like, "Look, man, I'm trying to win. I'm trying to win,"
They
and
ain't it.
he that ain't yeah, like we yo like
You
we
picked
don't
the wrong guy.
yeah. We don't have time. We don't have time to go through growing pains, bro. I'm trying to win. This is on my clock. So I think that's what a lot of that was.
Couple quick questions, real quick. Montrezl Harrell opted out, which if you everybody goes to the Philadelphia Inquirer,
Hallelujah! 2.7. I was
Yeah.
so scared he was going to opt in and just sit on the bench with that 2.7 mil. Sorry to cut you off, Al.
No, but you're right. I think anybody in the NBA, any fan of basketball would have thought Montrezl Harrell was going to opt in to get. He wasn't going to get 2.7 million anywhere else, but he opted out. A, how shocked are you? And B, how crazy is Montrezl Harrell?
You know what? I'm one of the guys who think that I wasn't really shocked. Now I had a couple people from around the league or agents call me and was like, "He did what? Come on, man!" But see, to me, I feel like when you look at Montrez, and Montrez waited till like the 11th hour to do it, right? To me, it comes down and it says like, "Look, what's going to be my role here? If I sit the bench another year, this could be it. Like if I don't get to play." So you look at teams like the Phoenix Suns. They went out there and like all their money goes to 5 players. They're going to have to sign a lot of minimum salary contracts. So there's going to be other teams like that. So Montrez is looking at it like, hey, I read the room. People told me I could probably get a minimum salary contract at another team. I'd rather go there and be a backup big as opposed to being a third string big, and I'm not going to play because it looks like right now you got Embiid as the first string. Then you're going to have Paul Reed. You know, he's a restricted free agent. He's probably going to come back. So with that being said, where does that stand for Montrez? It's like, yeah, I'm gonna get 2.7, but I'll be out of the league next year. But if I go somewhere else and I play, I'm gonna get the minimum, but at the same time, I'll probably get some playing time. So to me, I wasn't shocked, and I felt like it was probably if he talked to teams and he got an idea that he can get it, then it makes sense, in my opinion.
Draft night's tomorrow night. There's rumors the Sixers are trying to get into the second round. Are there any prospects that we can kind of just take a look at that they might be targeting, or is it kind of like no idea because they don't have a pick, so why put in effort into it?
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, it's not one of those. I think they can go a lot of different ways because when you look at this roster, and I really haven't put a lot of like effort into it, to be honest with you, saying like, hey, studying these guys, because when it goes to the second round, it could be anything. Like it could be a dude from France. It could be like a dude on like who played with whatever his name is, like the dude who's going to be number one, right? Yeah, I mean, it is a lot, but I do think that the 76ers would benefit from getting like another 3-and-D type of guy, or for from a second round pick. But I think that if they do that, they'll have a lot of options because this is a top heavy draft. But there's going to be a lot of with that. But there's also going to be some guys that are going to slide, and depending on where the Sixers pick, or get if they can, trade into, I think that they'll be fine. They'll be fine.
Just piggybacking off that, then, assuming we don't get anyone free agency wise, specifically Seth Curry, do you think they'll target him, and who out there do you think they can put together with the minimal money they have?
I don't think they can afford Seth Curry. I just don't. Like, right now they're not going to, like, they're over the cap, right? The best thing they can do is try to trade for him if they can, but I don't even know if Brooklyn wants to deal with Daryl Morey after the last trade, right? Like, I don't know if they want to, but I think that Seth Curry is a guy who, you think about it, when he came to the 76ers, he was a bench player. he was with the Sixers and he was a starter and he played well for them. I feel like he's going to be a guy that's going to get paid. Like I do. I think he's going to get paid. I'm not saying a max salary or anything like that, but I think that he's going to make more money than what the Sixers want. And then also, we got to understand something. Does he really want to come back to the Sixers? Like, this is a team, he went there because his father-in-law was the coach. His father-in-law traded for him, right? And then next thing you know, Daryl Morey trades him, and then he fires his father-in-law. So, like, it's like, like that's a tough conversation to have with the wife to say, babe, I want to go play for the team that not only traded us, but then fired your pop. So I don't see that one.
Good point. Is there anyone out there you could probably not because you said the cap it has to be trade. So.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Like I mean, like someone like there could be some people that they can get like on the minimum or something like that, and those things tend to pan out or play out like a little later on. But as far as like I hear a lot of people talking about big name players and stuff like that. That ain't happening. Like it's just not. They just don't have it. They don't have it now. You can trade Tobias Harris and try to, get some quality role players and stuff like that. But outside of that, I don't see it happening.
All right, guys, his name's Keith Pompey, as if you didn't know that already. You can find him at Locked On 76ers Daily Podcast. If you haven't been reading him, it's almost a daily thing for me to go on his Twitter or go to PhiladelphiaInquirer.com and read his stuff. And follow him on Twitter at Pompey on Sixers. Keith, anything you're up to that you want to plug before you head out?
Nah, man, I'm just chilling. That's it. That's it. That's it.
I love Keith.
I love having you on, man. Can't wait to talk to you again. Appreciate you as always.
And thanks for having me on, fellas. And I'm glad y'all reached out to me to come on. I really enjoyed being on here talking to y'all.
Cool. Oh, man, I appreciate you. Have a great day, Keith. Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, peace, fellas. Bye.
Keith Pompey, everybody. As like I said, he is the man. If you are a Sixers fan, even a little bit, you follow Keith. He's almost a daily digestion for me when I go on to any of my Sixers podcasts or whatever I want to listen to. But remember, that was brought to you by PhillySportsTrips.com. Philly Sports Trips is the way to travel and check out all the great Philly away games. They just sold out of their Wrigley Field game that is coming up at the end of the month. They're heading out to watch the Phillies take on the Cubs for the weekend. The next one coming up is the Pittsburgh baseball trip, July 28th to the 31st. If you haven't been to PNC Park, it is an amazing park. I love going there. It is a great trip. And the Pirates are playing a little better baseball, so it's going to be a great time. Of course, they have all the away games for the Eagles all lined up. One of the ones we went on to last year, it was amazing, was the one to Washington. 10 busloads. I know they're up to at least 6 already. It could be more. They're trying to break that again. And Hollis Thomas will be there. Jason Avant will be there. It is. I always tell you, it's more than a ticket and a seat in a bus or a plane ride. It is an experience at PhillySportsTrips.com. So we want to thank Keith Pompey for joining us. But why don't we change gears? Like I said,
hold on. Can we just digest? I mean, the Phillies game's over, so we kind of talked then.
It never happened.
Yeah. It's just irrelevant. So. I just want to digest some of that interview. So we're talking $48 million for Harden per year. I guess a 2-year deal. That's a lot more. I guess.
And they're already over the luxury tax by like $60 million almost, right?
But if it's your own player, you can expand.
Yeah.
48. I can. I was 40 was kind of my max. A 2-year, 40-year deal. I thought what was intriguing, though, and we crush Harden. I'm kind of on the fence, being honest, but I realize he should be crushed for Game 6 and 7, but also realize the good he's done too. But it sounds like to me he's a pretty good dude, and he brought that guy in the shooting for Michigan State to the games, paid for all that, and it just seems like I think he's a misunderstood guy. It sounds like to me.
Well, I think the ultimate problem, and especially here in Philadelphia, is if you're not winning, you're going to look for every reason why this guy's not winning. The big thing is the guy, like Keith said, he likes to play hard. He likes to party hard. And if you're not winning the big games, it's going to be blamed. I mean, I think it was the Rights for Ricky Sanchez, Spike Eskin podcast where he came out and said that somebody close to the organization said they kind of knew that Game 7 was going to go the way it went because he just didn't see James as being ready to go or whatever. Now, I don't know if you can take any credence to anything like that, but I get what you're saying. Like, I'm not out on. I'm like, James Harden's still one of the top tier players in the NBA. But with that being said, is the ultimate goal is to win the championship at this point. We've been bounced out of the second with and without James Harden. But if it's not going to be all right, Joel was missing a piece. They got James. If it's not going to be James, I mean, when and where? Like, where is it? Like, whose fault is it? And what do you have to do to get over that hump?
You know, I just go back to Joel Embiid. Like, he's supposed to be the guy. And thank you, everyone that's listening right now. Please like and smash that subscribe button, whatever the lingo is, the cool hip terms. Appreciate everyone listening. Share it out, please. But, like, it goes back to Joel Embiid. Like, he needs to command the ball with 5 minutes to go. And Harden did take shots. He missed them in the Game 6. And then they found open guys that missed shots. And Doc kind of blamed the call plays were to Joel. But this goes to the star. Like, Nikola Jokic, we're not like, oh, where did Nikola Jokic go? Now, Jamal Murray was knocking down shots and came up big for them in big moments as well. But I just don't fully put it on Harden. I put it more on Embiid. And Harden runs the offense. He ran the offense fine on the games that he wasn't scoring outside of Game 7. He was a complete mess. But if you remember, he opens up that game with a steal. They're in the game. He was running the offense well. It's just his shot wasn't there. He was looking to draw fouls instead of scoring, but that's been his MO his whole career. Where was Embiid? He wasn't drawing fouls. He was settling for jumpers because the going got tough. And he decided he's going to settle for jumpers. The jumpers weren't on. And then they just both disappeared and got ran out of the building. I mean, it was a 3-point game in the second quarter. At the half, it was what, a 4-point game?
Yeah.
So
it was definitely a game into the half, but it just looked like people ran out of gas. They couldn't buy a shot if their life depended on it. And I think that's where what people are looking at. No, I don't think anybody can say that either James or Joel can't score, but can they score in that big moment? Was Joel or passing that ball out more because the guys were open, or because he kind of shrunk in a big moment?
That's where I'm at. Like, did he shrink? It seems like he shrunk to me again. But that's not to say he won't grow through it. How many times did Jokic knock at the door and not get there? Everyone's like, Nuggets are going to choke. Jokic is going to choke. He didn't choke. What about Giannis? Same thing for Giannis until he didn't. Same thing for Michael Jordan until he didn't. And even LeBron James until he didn't. So, like, players have to go through this and they have to get to the next level. Now, some players never go through the next level. They never get there. We'll see what happens with Embiid, but, you know, I think we need to add some shooting around him if we can. Try to make some kind of trade. I thought what was also interesting from that interview was Tobias Harris and the talk of Tobias Harris, Nick Nurse unlocking Tobias Harris. What did you think about that?
I mean, I don't know my thoughts on many of the things about the Sixers right now. Even that question, it's just, I guess, like many fans and analysts, anybody just following this team, it's like it's always a letdown. Unlock Nick Nurse, unlock Tobias Harris. I mean, I feel like we've been hearing about that since he's been here. If it wasn't him, it was gonna be. If it wasn't gonna be Brett Brown, it was gonna be Doc. If it wasn't gonna be Doc, now it's Nick Nurse. Like, at what point do we say it's just Tobias Harris? This is Tobias Harris's ceiling? Here it is. He's hit the ceiling for the most part. He has his moments, and we see it especially during the regular season, where he comes on. Maybe Joel's sitting a game, or Harden's not playing or something, and he steps up because he can and he will at times. But we talk about unlocking Tobias Harris, but there's another person I feel who just shrinks in the moment. And I don't know if that's not what you're going to get from Tobias Harris. Like, people always complain about his contract, which, hey, he didn't put a gun to somebody's head and he said, give me that money. They gave it to him. No, if anybody robbed him, it was the Sixers robbed themselves with that contract. And that was a save face type move when they didn't re-sign Jimmy Butler. But I mean, who else can unlock Tobias Harris at this point than Tobias Harris? Or is there anything left to unlock? I don't know.
Now, he's never going to be the max guy. Like, he's just not. That's not what he is. Like, he got overpaid. We knew that when they did it. Like, we knew it when they did it. Last year, he averaged 14 points per game, 5 rebounds, 2.5 assists as basically the fourth option. That's not bad. The fourth option, that's not bad. The problem is he disappeared in the playoffs, 2 points, nothing there. Mm-hmm. I don't think Tobias Harris is as bad as everyone makes it out to be. He plays solid D. I think his net rating was like a 112, 113. Not amazing, not horrible defensively. When he doesn't play hesitantly, he misses layups often. But as the fourth option, I don't think it's that big of a deal. So hear me out. And after hearing Keith, I've been scared to finally just come into this, but I have on Party on Broad a little bit, and I got some backlash. But here's my final thoughts. Run it back. That is what we need to do. We need to run it back with the same roster, and for once, go more than 1 or 2 years with the same team and see what happens under Nick Nurse to open this up and see what happens. I think we're going to have a total different team that focuses on rebounding, getting out in the fast break, which is going to help Harris and Maxey, and it's going to be a total different style. Embiid's going to probably be told to stay back, get the rebound, and pass it out to whoever, and let's just run. And I'm all for running it back. Financially is the way to do it, and here's the best part about it. If it doesn't work out, you just automatically get $47 million going into one of the biggest free agencies ever in 2024. It's just to make a move now with Harris and get role players on that are going to be in the books for the next 2-3 years is foolish. You might as well just keep him here as the fourth option. Again, 14 points a game as the fourth option and he has the ability to be a 1 or 2 if guys get injured. So I'm saying run it back. I really am. I'm convinced now. Keith has me on the run it back train officially.
I mean, are you saying a carbon copy of the 76ers from last year? Or are you saying, but we're going to add shooters. We're going to do something to change this up. Like, what do you like? I don't know if I can agree with a complete carbon copy.
Well, think about it's not going to be a complete carbon copy. So you got guys leaving. You're not going to have half a season of Montrezl Harrell. You're not going to have Dwayne Dedman. You're not going to have what's his face? Probably not going to have George Niang, who I love. Bang bang, George Niang. When he's on fire with 3, I love how he acts and all that. But he's a slow guy. I don't feel like he fits what Nick Nurse wants to do. So I think they're going to make some changes. You're going to have Jaden Springer now playing a ton of minutes, which I really wanted to touch on him more with Keith. But we were running out of time, and you already had kind of asked. But I really think Jaden Springer is going to be a pleasant surprise. Could be a 3-and-D guy. He's not going to be a lights-out three-point guy, but he's going to bring you some D. But he's going to be athletic. He's going to run down the floor. No, it's not going to be a carbon copy. The stars are going to be a carbon copy. Possibly you're going to see Paul Reed at the 4.
That was going to be my next question. Do you think Paul Reed and Embiid are on the court at the same time?
I think it's certainly something Nick Nurse is going to try. He said multiple times he's going to try different things. He's going to see if it works. And maybe the starting lineup is Harden, Maxey, Harris at the 3, and then Reed at the 4 with Embiid, and then Tucker off the bench as a backup center on small lineups and the 4. Or maybe Reed gets starter minutes because he falls back into the center position on the second lineup. So now Reed's getting the minutes he wants and then setting himself up for a payday down the road. I think there's options there. And then your second unit could be Maxey, Melton, Reed, and Tucker with Springer. And then you still got Korkmaz. Maybe he finds a way to get Korkmaz going because Korkmaz can get hot at times. I'm not a Korkmaz fan, but who knows? I just really think.
Well, Korkmaz is a free agent, right?
No, he has one more year.
Oh, it's 1 more year. Okay. I mean, I don't know. I don't think Korkmaz wants to be here. I mean, unless Nick Nurse sat down with him. Oh no, I'm just saying he made it abundantly clear he wanted to be traded, and kind of like what Keith was talking about earlier with Montrezl Harrell, that he's going to want to, he wants to go and play somewhere because he feels like if he sits and rides a bench the entire time, so maybe he thinks he might, even if he goes to a team that doesn't have a chance of really contending, but thinks he can get more playing time and get more time to kind of show off what he can do. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure how that plays out.
I mean, what's he going to do, Al? Hold out? Like
No,
no one wants him. He's making $5 million next year. He's overpaid.
True.
There's
Which
no.
I still haven't understood that signing that contract, but
I didn't either. But it is what it. Well, he remember he was coming off those hot games where he dropped like 20 plus multiple nights in a row. I think he was starting to play regularly under Doc. The reason he wants to get traded is because he doesn't play because he stinks. But I mean, he's a guy that's probably going to be here. If we could unload him, he's $5 million off the cap, but it's just not something that's going to happen. Other than that, you got Daniel House. I would like to see him under. I'm not a House fan either by any means. I would like to see him under Nurse, and then you're just going to see how.
Did he intrigue you? Did he intrigue you a little bit or do you think that was just a fluke thing in the playoffs?
He never makes layups. He made like 4 out of 5 layups. Like the norm is he misses those layups, and then he proceeded to do that stupid step back 3 from the corner that he hits 1 out of 8, and it's just like asinine stuff he does, like bonehead stuff. He's going to be back though. He opted in. He's making $4.1 million. I don't think that was a great contract, but maybe under Nick Nurse it is. But I just think you need to run it back. Shake Milton probably is off the books. You're going to replace him. He's going to want to go elsewhere where he's going to get more playing time. I just think you're going to see slight Jalen McDaniels. Are they going to bring him back? Maybe yes, maybe no. I'm looking down the roster now. You got Philippe Petrusev, who's coming over probably from Serbia. He's going to play in the summer league. Will he be on the roster as a backup center? If he can knock down the 3, that's something of interest now. He's playing professional ball over there. He's a guy that might be on here. This is going to be a team with the same, unless they find like a gold mine trade for Tobias Harris, which they may be looking to do. You have to run it back.
The rumors that the Sixers are looking to trade to get back into the draft this year. Thoughts on that? Why? Or I don't even understand why they would. It would currently how that makes a difference now. And what would they give up to trade? I mean, are you going to get a late first round pick or a second round pick involved with a Tobias Harris trade or something? Like, I don't understand the point of that.
Well, they're trying to trade in, so there's probably someone specifically they're targeting to draft. Now, like he said, that could be someone overseas, or that could be a guy that's going to contribute this year, or they think could. Mm-hmm. Doubtful you're getting a guy that can contribute this year in the second round, but maybe they're trying to build the funnel for the following year. Not sure, because contract-wise, they're not going to really be able to sign anyone except veteran minimum players.
Sure. So we were talking about Nick Nurse, and anybody who's watched the show more than 1 or 2 times, they know that you, myself, and Joe are all Delco boys, and apparently Nick Nurse is settling his roots here in Delaware County. So be interesting to see where he lands. And it's funny because we're going to speak about this, but one of the places that somebody said he should be checking out and had been talked about a lot is Dolan's Bar, 24 East Sellers Avenue, Ridley Park. Go to dolansbar.com. You can check out all the fun stuff. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Quizzo, music, great times, memorabilia. And this Sunday, the 25th, is Lollapalooza. It's a great time. Great bands, food vendors, just different things going on. It's just a small, but not too small, outdoor event that they do right out back at Dolan's. And it is an amazing, every year it's a great time with some really good local acts. So you got to check it out. I might be stopping by myself. You might even see me there if you really, that sweetens the deal in any which way, which it probably doesn't.
It does.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to see you, Al.
But yeah, I mean, I guess we might see honorary Delconian and Nick Nurse.
T-shirts have to be made. I mean,
Yeah.
we should probably make them.
There you go. On top of it, patent pending. Another one question that we never got a chance to talk, and we did give it a little bit of chance to talk about. And I know why he left, and I know why. And I mean, it's not like. Do you think it's going to be a huge loss with Sam Cassell?
I mean, for Maxey maybe, but Maxey probably has heard enough from him at this point in the game. I think he's going to take the knowledge he has from him and then now hear another ear. You know, I really think it's important to hear different coaches. This will be his second coach now, Nick Nurse, and this guy has all types of ideas, and he's very focused on pressure defense. And I think that could, extend Maxey's game. Expand is the word I'm looking for.
Sure.
So Cassell's a good coach. The only thing that's concerning is that went to the Celtics, and he'll know exactly how to attack Maxey. So they'll probably have a game plan for Maxey per se. Boston did well on their own, so I guess against Maxey, he tended to not play well against Boston, so maybe that's irrelevant.
There's been some rumors. I'm keep my eye on Twitter. That's why my eyes kind of been looking to the right, but nothing of anything concrete. But apparently a Flyers trade rumor kind of floating around. Now we know, and we'll change gears a little bit here and talk your Flyers for a moment. John LeClair has another former Flyer joining the ranks of the new Flyers regime. Again, is this just we talked about this last show, and I think we all were kind of in the consensus that it's not the same old because ain't the guy from the 70s and the 80s and younger guys, guys with a pedigree to win like Patrick Sharp and things like that. But at this point, is it just getting silly that, or does it just happen to be that the guys are former Flyers? But I mean, LeClair has a background and has been talked about it. But are you at any all like just, all right, guys, seriously, can you just hire one guy that wasn't a former Flyer?
See, here's where I like it. And I think it's sorry, I'm trying to bring up change our backgrounds to match the Flyer colors there.
Yeah.
But
which it doesn't anymore because the new colors are back to the burnt orange. But yeah,
which I love as well.
Yeah,
which is our childhood. So what I like it. He's basically, this just tells me Jones knows what he's doing. He is copying what Schneider did, what Mr. Schneider, as they call him, Ed Snyder did when he was here. He's redoing it all over again, except he's doing it not with the 70s and 80s players that are out of touch and lost. He's doing it with players from today that are more with the game and are more ready to go. And those teams, they didn't win a cup since 74 or 77. But when we were kids, they competed every single year. And that started to fall off after around 2010, right? So we want it, before worrying about cups, we got to get back to being the Flyers, a team that every single year is going to be in the playoffs. Now, we want a cup, and I know we want one, and it has to be there. But you have to start by becoming a playoff team again and becoming a franchise where players want to come to as well. So I love it. Keep doing it.
So just like I said, everything I'm saying right now.
We can go further. We can have a front office set up just called the Legion of Doom and have Lindros, Renberg, and LeClair. They got their corner office and they're just doing front office stuff.
It would be funny if Lindros, because I remember there was that rumor like they were trying to sell the Flyers, and David Boreanaz had a group of people ready to buy the Flyers, and Lindros was one of those guys rumored. So it'd be interesting to see. But so LeClair is hired as an advisor to Jonesy, Keith Jones, and he has a background in this, so it's not like they're just, okay, you used to play for us, come here. I mean, he's followed a lot of young guys. He's worked in a lot of the developmental regions, so it's not like it's a ridiculous thing. But back to the rumors for a second. One of the rumors I've seen floated around a little bit has been Travis Konechny again. Red Wings have shown a lot of interest in him. Lawton, which it's starting to spike up again. Of course, Carter Hart, and the other one was Travis Sanheim. So it could be interesting. And with a week from today, if everything stays the way it is, by now the Flyers have probably picked both the number 7 and the number 22 overall pick, because the first round is next Wednesday starting at 7 p.m., which stay tuned here at EoP Sports. We will keep you guys up to date the entire time.
So Travis Konechny's an interesting one. He's coming off a great year, 30 goals, 30 assists in 60 games.
Yeah.
So essentially he had more than a point in every game. What will a trade of him command? He's 26 years old now. He was a first round pick, so he's of that ilk.
I think you just hit on the
table.
nose. I'm thinking you hit on the nose. I think first round
multiple.
I mean, at least a first round, a good prospect, and maybe a later round pick somewhere, or a second or third round pick. I mean, at least something like that. I mean, look what they got for Provorov. I mean, they got the 22nd overall pick for him. They took on some young guy contracts that, unloading some guys from the Kings and all that, but but guys who could have some upside to them. And I think Travis Konechny is going to definitely command more than that. So maybe multiple first round, maybe one this year, one next year, or one if it's a higher one this year. I mean, if you are at number 7 and maybe you can get around 10 or 11, you could package that up and take 10 and 11 or 7 and 11 and move up to 4, 3, something like that, and get one of these really good prospects. So it's going to be interesting. And again, I said this last week, it's going to be interesting because from a Flyers standpoint, it has been mainly doom and gloom. At least we have something to look forward to going forward. And I haven't been excited for a NFL draft in a very long time.
NHL, but
NHL,
you said
yeah.
NFL. It's interesting because the Flyers have cap issues. They seem to always have cap issues my whole entire life, and they're always trying to get free cap space up to make moves. So getting rid of these guys is essentially freeing up cap space too for the future, whether they're paid now or they're going to pay. I'm trying to bring up Konechny's contract as we're talking.
Well, one of the big ones would be Kevin Hayes in that case, and obviously he's not going to be around. I mean, they might have to eat part of his contract.
I mean, Konechny carries a big one too. I know it's got to be 30 mil. 6 years, 33 million. So that's about $5.5 million a year, which is a ton of money for hockey. That's you got to remember that part. So our rebuild's going to be good in 3-4 years max. He'll be 30 at that time, which I think is a nice veteran player, but you're also going to have to pay him a nice veteran salary at that time. Yeah. Where if you trade him now and develop picks and get future picks this year, next year, I just think it's kind of the way to go, because at 26 years old, coming off arguably his best year, is certainly balanced goals to assists. I think he had another year around 60 points in 60 games too. But it was more assists. He had 40 assists or something, so it was more assist late, and it's pretty balanced this year. That you can get significant compensation right now for him. I think it's a move you have to make for him. And then you go over to Sanheim, who you mentioned is also in the trade rumors. He's 27 years old. Goodbye. See ya.
Yeah. I mean, Tony DeAngelo also has been rumored too, and he's older. To me, he was I don't know. I still don't understand that trade and the money they paid him. And he's a giant moron. I mean, I go back to that Lightning game, the Tampa Bay Lightning game, where he went up and totally just did one of the most unprofessional moves in hockey you could do. And the other, like I said, and him and Kevin Hayes, if you can unload them and not have to take on too much or any money at all, that's just a big move right there. I mean, you're not going to get much back for those two guys, but if you can get either a mid-tier prospect or a later round draft pick this year or next year, you can find a diamond in the rough not easily, but easier than maybe if this was the NBA and, we're talking about a late second round pick. I mean, that's almost like, no, thank you. But,
Sanheim's contract is $6.25 million per year till 2030. Like, if we're going to hit on these guys that we're going to hit on in the draft, we're going to have to pay them. So, like, trade these guys now when we got some value for them.
Sure.
I didn't realize he was making that much money.
I mean, listen, one thing that Chuck Fletcher really, like one of the many things that Chuck Fletcher really screwed up was these contracts for the Flyers. And this, I mean, Kevin Hayes' was a bit unwieldy when that came on, because again, it was a team that we thought had a chance to contend when they made some moves and brought in Ellis and guys like that, and you know, just, and it didn't pan out that way. So now you got guys like Briere who are left to clean up that mess. But I mean, the other problem with Kevin Hayes is it's common public knowledge that him and Torts did not get along. So any team is not going to even if they really like them, unless it becomes some sort of bidding war between multiple teams. The other teams aren't going to overpay for him. And like I said, most likely you're going to need part of his contract, hopefully not much, to a point that I think you might just be lucky to unload his contract.
I mean, he was an all-star. I mean, he's an all-star. He didn't have the greatest year. He did play 81 games, so durability has to be in the thing here. And his contract is actually not as bad as we think. This year it's 6.5, but the last 2 years of the deal are only $4 million. So if you're getting that level player, but he's 31 years old. So
that's the other problem. Yes.
That's the problem. You're right. And Columbus was rumored to be the team involved, and they're tired of, because I think Briere is being a pain in the neck about things. He's not going to give players away. And, you know, Kevin Hayes probably is gone because of the Torts thing, especially. But, you know, get a first rounder for these guys. Do it. Like, there's got to be, like, I would say to Torts and Hayes, like, hey, listen, effing well that you guys don't get along. You're staying here and playing. And Kevin Hayes will play. You know, he actually likes the city of Philadelphia. He just got issues with Torts.
It's Torts, yeah.
And he'll play, and he'll be hopefully he's not a bad egg, but, you know, he's a professional. Like, if he was that much of a bad egg, I could see he would have sulked an injury. He played 81 games last year.
Yeah, I don't think he wouldn't play. I think it definitely is a personality conflict between him and Torts. The one thing I do worry about is maybe if it's, you know, I don't think he's going to not to try his best, but if it's if it's in their head, that's where you have to worry about, because we all know you can come back from a knee injury, a shoulder injury, whatever injury, but if it's in between the ears, that sometimes it's something that's hard to overcome. And as you would know, I don't care if you played, you know, intramural basketball or professional hockey. If you have a coach that you can't really play for, you know, your game isn't up to snuff. And he may sit out because he, being an older guy, he goes, I don't have a lot of time left in this league, and I don't want to waste my time behind this guy. That's where I think it becomes an issue. Like, honestly, that's where I look at it. And like I said, if they can unload him and Tony DeAngelo, and without, you know, still having to pay a ton of money, I think that right there is a huge successful win for them. And, you know, just keep the young guys, Cutter, Allison, those kind of guys, keep those guys and build around them. And, you know, we always said, like, you know, last year the Flyers were a half of an NHL team. Half the guys who played didn't deserve to play in the NHL yet, but I'm okay with that. Like, let's see what we got with some of these young guys. That's one plus side of being in the basement, is where you can allow guys to play and get things together like that.
I'm so excited for Tyson Forrester this year. They brought him up last year for a little bit. Torts loves him. In 8 games, he had 7 points. I think it was 2 goals. 2 goals, maybe 3. I'm so excited for him. Bobby Brinks is got to get a chance to play. Like, this is like young talent that we're going to be like excited to watch and see how they do. It's like kind of refreshing in a sense that when you're watching the team lose or even like go on unnecessary winning streaks with veterans that you know what they are. We know what they are. We know what all these guys are. Now it's going to be, who is this guy? Oh, wow. And if they win a few games they're not supposed to, I'm not going to be like upset about it because it's young guys doing it. When it's like 25-plus-year-olds that we know who they are. Not to say 25 isn't young, but we already know what they are. Cam York, he's another guy that is going to now get into a bigger role with Provorov gone. He's going to have more minutes, more time to prove himself. I think he played he's got 78 games under his belt so far.
Sure.
It's just a ton of youth. And then in a few years, you got Cutter Gauthier or Gauthier, however you pronounce it, coming on, like 2-3 years, maybe. Like, he was the 5th pick in the draft.
Yeah, last year.
He's got another year in Boston College. Like, that guy could be, who knows? Like, that could be a star at all.
I think he could be a very good star. Maybe not a superstar, but I think he could be a star. And there's a lot of Flyers to talk about, and we will be talking a lot over the next week or so. I remind you guys that this show is also brought to you by CherryInjuryLaw.com. Dave Cherry is the man, and he has the plan for you if you get hurt at work, in a motor vehicle accident, personal injury, criminal law, you name it, he will take care of you. David R. Cherry, 610-565-0300, or go to CherryInjuryLaw.com. Don't forget, here's our lineup here at EoP. Tomorrow night, you got another Fightins final as long as the rain holds up. The attacking third will be talking Union soccer with you. We'll get into Friday and Saturday and Sunday, the full weekend. Steel Steps makes their second show here on EoP. 10 o'clock on Friday, talking all professional wrestling, AEW, WWE, and then the independent ranks here in the Philadelphia area as well. Saturday, Patterson at Fanatics. Sunday, PM in the AM, as well as the All Across All the Time. And we'll be hopefully seeing a good wrap up to the Braves and Mets series. And hopefully we see the Phillies make some ground in the standings. Other than that, I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want a big old thank you to Keith Pompey for joining us. Thank you for Freddie to hanging out. Happy birthday to young Fred. And guys, I'm Big Al.
I'm Freddie Burns.
And we out.
There's one thing I want you to do for me.
What?
Come here.